Good afternoon and welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Heather Hickey and I'm joining you here from the Program Technology team. Today we will be taking a look at different stages of inquiry and some of the digital tools you can use to help support your students through that process. So we're just giving everyone just a few minutes to be able to click the links. Please make sure you have signed in on the sign-in schedule, letting us know if you have used supply coverage today. And at the end of our session, please go back and click on the exit ticket at the bottom of the page. So we'll just get everyone settled and we'll get started. So just as you're all signing in, just as a reminder, there is a link in that document that says join the conversation. So you can click on that to ask our team any questions that you may have. And just for reference, that link is open every day on Tuesdays and Thursdays all day long. So after the session today, if you try out a few things and you have some questions, you're always welcome to come back and ask questions. Today, you can also use the hashtag DP Chats if you are on Twitter or Yammer. And also just to note that if you go to YouTube and you look up the channel DP CDSB Chats, that is where you will find all of our archived sessions. So if you'd like to rewatch them and press pause or just to review them at a later date, that's where they'll be found for you. Some of the tools we'll be looking at today. We'll be exploring some digital citizenship resources, taking a look at some media resources that you can use to help your students with research. We'll be looking at some safe search engines. We'll be looking at where you can help your students learn about copyright and licenses and how to use those into presentations that they might use. We'll be taking a look at some online graphic organizers. We also like to make some connections and highlight the Catholic graduate expectations. So as we go through the session today, we'll be looking for opportunities where we can have reflective experiences for your students, giving them opportunities to collaborate and knowledge share throughout inquiries, and also working and giving them skills to become effective communicators. We know with Catholic graduate expectations that we also now are looking at layering on the digital component while we look at the inquiry process. So this is a graphic you might be familiar with from the social studies, history and geography and science curriculums. So as we go through, we will be highlighting different parts of the inquiry process. At times, different graphics you may have seen may have called those stages different names, but essentially we're looking at those kind of four areas of exploring, investigating, processing, and creating. As we talk about inquiry today, just also keep in mind the idea of the gradual release model. So if you are just starting to work with inquiry in your classroom, you're definitely going to be at the modeling stage with your students. And as you go through and build those inquiry skills and research skills with your students, you will eventually start releasing more of that into the student role, where they will go from a guided experience into an independent experience. So the first resource we're going to quickly highlight today is some digital citizenship resources. We're going to be taking a look at the OSAPAC website, which is Ontario Ministry education site, where they have some vetted resources for us. So I'm going to pop out and show you that in just a moment. So I've highlighted for you the idea of gathering and organizing that stage of inquiry, where we're helping our students become effective researchers. So as you can see, as in the description here, we'll be highlighting some effective search strategies that you can use with your students to narrow down search engines, how to locate and vet some websites as credible resources, and then starting to analyze and reflect on that information and using that inquiry model throughout their research. So I'm going to go ahead out and take you into that site so you can see what that looks like. So again, you would come to osapac.ca, and what you'll notice at the top along the toolbar here under projects is a digital citizenship tab. And as you come in here, there is a video that will help explain that to you if you'd like to rewatch that for the purpose of these components. And you'll also know what they've done is separated resources into elementary and secondary here. And what they've done is they've broken digital citizenship here into 4 kind of distinct categories. And we're taking a look at critical thinking today, the one I just highlighted to you. We're also kind of looking at the idea of credit and creation, where we're taking a look at those copyright ideas and how to give credit to research and ideas that we find online, respecting the property of others. We also have the category of presence and communication. So teaching the students different platforms and how to respect each other in those collaborative spaces. And always keeping in mind the protection of the students and making sure we're taking them to protected sites and protecting all of their information. So any one of those 4 categories, you'll notice it's broken underneath into primary, junior, intermediate, and secondary. So you can click on the tab that applies to you, and under resources, what you'll find here is a list of vetted sites and that include different things from videos to interactive resources to lesson plans. So lots of things here to support you in those conversations as we layer digital citizenship with our Catholic graduate expectations. So again, lots of tools here to support you and your students in that gathering and organizing phase of the inquiry process. And as we start to talk about setting up experiences for our students in that digital light here, what I'd like to do is highlight a video I found for you on this website, Common Sense Media. And it's going to just explain to you how they've layered digital components with Bloom's taxonomy, which you probably are familiar with. So I'm just going to take you out and show you that video.
Most educators are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, a model that classifies different levels of human cognition in thinking, learning, and understanding. As a teacher, you've likely used this taxonomy to guide the development of curriculum, assessments, and instructional strategies. But how is this model affected in an age of digital technology, and how might it influence your instructional design? Let's take a step back. Bloom's taxonomy was created in the 1950s by educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom and his colleagues. The 3 lower levels, knowledge, comprehension, and application, are more basic levels of cognition, also called lower order thinking skills. This would include concrete thinking, memorization, and understanding. The 3 upper levels, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, referred to as higher order thinking skills, include abstract, critical, metacognitive, and creative thinking. Some have likened the model to a mountain or a stairway, where teachers set learning objectives and design learning experiences to guide students to higher levels of thinking. The taxonomy has become an important model for structuring students' learning processes. In the 1990s, Bloom's taxonomy was updated by a group led by David Krathwohl, one of the original authors, and Lauren Anderson, a former student of Bloom's. To make the model relevant to 21st century learning, one of their main changes was updating the nouns associated with each level to action-oriented verbs. This differentiation positions thinking as an action-based process rather than one of passive acquisition. For example, knowledge was replaced with remember, analysis was changed to analyze, and so on. They also reordered the last 2 steps. Evaluation, which was previously at the top, was moved down, and creating, formerly synthesis, was moved to the top. With this framing, educators have several different verbs, questions, and instructional strategies associated with each level. In recent years, there have been many iterations and metaphors for Bloom's taxonomy, including an orange, where the 6 levels are distributed more equally, moving cogs, representing an interworking system in which creation is dependent upon all of the other aspects, or a flipped pyramid illustrating an emphasis on higher order thinking skills. But in thinking about how technology affects this model, consider it as Bloom's digital taxonomy. This updated version aims to expand upon the skills associated with each level as technology becomes a more ingrained and essential part of learning. For instance, some propose that new action verbs can be applied within each level. Let's take a look at creating, in which learners are designing, inventing, and constructing a piece of work that shows what they know. One could add new digital verbs to creating, like blog, remix, or program. These verbs refer to possible learning activities that incorporate digital technologies in which students are creating. Adding digital verbs to the taxonomy also promotes 21st century skills like communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. Others have taken the 6 levels of the taxonomy and aligned them with technology tools that help foster each level. For example, as a teacher, you can think about how to integrate apps and websites that help students remember content, like flashcards or drill and practice tools. There are tools that help students analyze and make sense of content, like reading charts, graphs, or mind maps. Or you can think about what tools support student creation, like producing, podcasting, blogging, coding, editing, and more. With these examples, the focus should not necessarily be on the tools themselves, but on how the tools can be vehicles in transforming student thinking at different levels. So, as you weave technology into your teaching, ask yourself, how can the tools you use support different cognitive levels? Which tools help you address lower order thinking skills? And which can help challenge students' higher order thinking skills? Consider how Bloom's digital taxonomy can help you identify ways to design technology-rich learning experiences for your students.
Okay, so just keeping in mind, as the video pointed out, that it's more about the purpose of those tools than the actual tools themselves. So we're always taking a look at the purpose of technology and where it fits and how we layer it with curriculum expectations and pedagogy and experience for our students. The first site I'd like to take you to here is commonsensemedia.org. And you can see here under the digital citizenship that they've broken it into various categories. And you can see just by the chart here that they've indicated where they have lessons for different divisions under each category. So there's a fountain of information here at this site. And the part I'm going to be highlighting for you today links very nicely into the gather and organize stage of the inquiry process. So I'm going to go ahead and take you over to commonsensemedia.org. So as a teacher, I created an account, and why it's important for you to do that is when you register with an educational account, you're going to get access to educational resources. And once I did that, I came in here under digital citizenship, and you'll notice that there's different components in here. And as I scroll down on this site, you'll notice that they've actually, under this chart, identified for you where they have lessons. And you have some different options here how you'd like to access those lessons. So what I'd like to do is bring you in here today. I'm going to highlight one of the lessons here under information and literacy. And when you have a teacher account, you can download those lessons into a PDF format to use. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. I've already opened that up here. So once you click into those links, as I went into information, literacy, you can see that, again, you can click on your grade level or division. And then they've actually broken those out into units. So for this particular unit, Unit 1, you can see they've color-coded it here down the right for which part of digital citizenship those lessons kind of touch on. So some of them kind of tap into different categories, as you can see. So the one I'd like to highlight for you today here was Lesson 2, different steps for strategic searching. So as we open up that link, let's see, maybe it's not going to open that way. Let's try it again from here. There we go. So what you can see here is that you can choose the format that you would like those lessons in. It gives you a little summary of that lesson. And I'm just going to go ahead and open that up. There we go. So what you can see here is it opens it up here as a lesson plan. This one is targeting grades 6 to 8, but you could choose the category of your students. What it does is it gives you a time frame here and gives you the lesson overview. So it goes through, and you could go ahead and read through this. It kind of breaks it into a minds-on activity, gives you the vocabulary and some strategies to use. But as I scroll down to the bottom of this resource, I just want to highlight what's in here for you. It includes here some tips and strategies for students. So you can see here it's broken it up into stages so that you could work through in this lesson plan with your students, and they could use this as a bookmark to save for future reference, perhaps in their inquiry portfolios or journals or however they're documenting that journey. So here, step by step, it's going to give you some specific search strategies that you can use and different domain types that you can teach your students about when they're trying to narrow down different types of research. So a great little activity, and it also has a little assessment piece attached to it if you choose to use it with your students to kind of help work through that. So again, a great little site, because as you can see, I just chose one activity, but for all of these different areas, they have different lessons with different strategies. So as you're building those digital citizenship and inquiry skills with your students, you can kind of do some mini lessons or shared or modeled lessons in here with your students as they build those skills. Once you've acquired skills in all those areas, you'll be able to use that gradual release model and release your students into more open inquiries. And we'll go ahead here, and I'm going to highlight for you now the next area. Another website that we make good use of is called creativecommons.org. And as I take you out to that site, you're going to notice that it's speaking a lot to copyright and licenses. So I'm going to go ahead and take you there and show you some of that. So if you search Creative Commons or go to creativecommons.org, you can come here and you're going to notice that there's a search feature in here. So I'm just going to open that up. So again, you're going to find in here different projects and materials that you can use. And as you scroll down, you're going to notice here, how can I license my work? So if you go ahead into this, there's some examples of an experience you can put your students through to license their own piece of work. So perhaps you've created a digital piece or a video or some multimedia piece, and you can actually have the students upload their work and create a license for it. So once you go through that experience, it actually teaches you and your students the different types of copyright licenses that exist, and it allows them to attach one of those to their own work. The great thing about putting them through that experience is that they get a better understanding of the types of licenses. And there's a series of videos that you can use with your students in there that explain all of that. And that helps them then respect other people's work as they're now trying to make sure that they give credit for things that they find. You're also going to notice here this little search bar. It says find CC material. So if you were looking for any multimedia, I'm going to go ahead and put in uses Parable. Perhaps we were looking for an image or a video or some music that might match that. So you'll notice that what comes up here is the different options for search engines. So you could choose one. I'm going to go ahead into Google Images here. But if you were looking for music, you might choose a different one, or videos, you would perhaps choose YouTube. And once you do that, you're going to notice that it has a drop-down menu here. And one of these options here is it says labeled for non-commercial use. But if I click that, it actually comes up with all the different types of licenses that exist. So if I've put my students through that previous experience of teaching them what each of these different licenses mean, now when they're using different search engines, they could come in and click this drop-down menu and choose an appropriate one. So for instance, it defaulted to labeled for non-commercial use with modification, meaning that students could pull an image from here under this category for a project. It's a non-commercial project, and it also would allow them to modify that image if they so felt that they needed to do that. So now students can take images from here and know that they are copyright free. So just a great strategy to teach your students how to locate that. Oftentimes I wonder if students just don't know the strategies to be able to do that, and they're just taking things without realizing that they're not giving proper credit to those sites. So I like to put my students through that one, and they really enjoy that experience of creating a piece of work and uploading it and attaching the license. Next, I'd like to highlight an area in the inquiry process around interpret and analyze. So as students are researching and finding all of this information, we have to help them categorize that and make sense of it. So one of the resources that I've come across that is really useful is Holt Graphic Organizers. And again, here's the web address for you for that. And you can Google Holt Graphic Organizers as well to find that. So I'm going to take you to the website here. So right away, you'll notice that there is an option here for teaching notes. So if you wanted some instructions for how to make use of these different types of graphic organizers here, but you can see all types of things here, from evaluating information and organizing it. So if I were to click on that, you can see just different ways to organize the information. And being in a digital format, it allows them to type text into these areas. And the great thing about this is that you can actually save this. So by coming up and saying File, Save As, the kids can save that into their accounts. So they don't have to be able to complete the whole graphic organizer at one time. So they can come back and add to it as they're doing research. So whether you're saving that into Office 365 or onto their own devices, whatever that looks like, students can come in, type in, and then come back and add more, which is great. So you can see here the variety of different organizers. There's KWL charts, persuasive ones, evaluation ones, some comparison and contrast. So if you're trying to analyze different things, or perhaps they're doing sequencing of some type, or identifying details and main ideas in their research. So again, it would just depend on where you were in your inquiry and what you were trying to get them to organize. But again, if you're looking for some guidance on how to make use of those, teaching notes here would walk you through and explain those. So a great little tool that's free to use, and the students don't have to log in or create accounts for that. They can just click on it, open it up, and go ahead and say File, Save As, and save that. So a great little tool. I'm also going to highlight for you the web search engine Kiddle. So Kiddle.co has been released by Google, and it's a kid-friendly search engine. So I'm going to go ahead and take you in and show you what that looks like. So again, if you just go Kiddle.co, you'll get this, and you'll notice that it looks like a very basic search engine. Students can type in whatever they're looking for and say search. So the first thing you'll notice is that it has some nice bright graphics, the way it's organized. So it's very appealing to the students as they search through there. What's great is because this is designed for students, the advertising that will come up here will be child appropriate, as will the content. When we look at how Kiddle is organized, it's a very visual search engine, so it is appealing to students. And you'll notice here that the first 3 returns are returns that have been handpicked by Kiddle editors. So they're pages that have been written specifically for kids in kid language. So if they were to choose on the first 3 returns that came out, 1, 2, 3, they have been handpicked for that category that the students searched. The next search results, 4 through 7, these are trusted sites that are not specifically written for kids, but have content that would be easy for kids to understand. So again, these would have been handpicked and checked by Kittle editors. And then the results that go from 8 and onwards, these are sites that would be written for adults, providing that type of content. They would be more difficult for kids to understand, but they have the added feature of the safe search, which means it's going to filter out inappropriate material. So a great little search engine to bring your students to. Often we can prevent and have those digital citizenship conversations simply by introducing them to different search strategies that they can kind of build upon there. So again, that is fitting nicely right into the gather and organize stage of inquiry. And it's also, when we use that in combination with things like the Holt graphic organizers, it's allowing us to put them in an appropriate research space, but also giving them strategies for recording that research. Again, keep in mind that gradual release model. You definitely would want to do this as a modeled experience first, moving into a shared experience, into guided, and then into independent. Sorry about that. One of the harder pieces that students have a difficult time with is evaluating those websites. How do we know that websites we choose are reliable sources of information? So again, we're touching on that gathering phase. So I found this website here at eduscapes.com that has kind of broken that down a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to that. So again, this is a blogger website that's been created by an educator. And in here, you'll find there's some activities that you can actually send the students to particular websites. So for example, the activity here is how to spot a fake website. And they put them through an activity, and then they ask them to go explore these websites that have been put. Some are fake, some are real. And then it's a nice place to have that conversation with your students about misleading websites. So a great activity there to do as a shared experience. And then you'll notice as you scroll down that they've created some criteria for evaluation. So as you're working through different research experience with your students, you're definitely going to want to start modeling this, just like a think aloud where you would think out your internal thoughts. So we start to look at things like authority. So getting the students to investigate a little bit about who the author of the site is, if it's a recognized site, if it's a scholarly site. We take a look at the objective and perspectives. So probably in your language programs, you talk about things like fact and opinion and biases and sponsorships of websites. So we start to experience that and look for that. We're looking for authentic material. So again, knowing the source, having those conversations around, is it a primary source or a secondary source? Creating bibliographies. And there's lots of bibliography maker sites. If you Google how to make a bibliography, you'll find that there's a lot of sites out there now that you can paste a link into, and it will create that bibliography and help you out with that. We also take a look at how reliable a site is and considering the origin of that information. So is there a sponsorship to that publication? Do we trust that sponsor? Does the information come from schools, businesses, company sites? Does it persuade or try to sell you a product? We take a look at timelines. So we have conversations about, does the timeline of information fit in with current or sources or links? We look at websites with how relevant they are, if the information is useful. And taking a look at the multimedia that's included in that. Taking a look at the reading level of the text. Is it technically written correct? And efficiency, how well organized the websites are, can also do that. And again, it starts on this site, goes back into some search clues and different ways you can search. And again, here are some evaluation tools and activities you can do with your students. So you can see that that's a lot of information that you're not going to teach in one lesson. So it's definitely something that you would embed in things that you do. So if you're modeling for your students, researching different things, or you're bringing them to a website, perhaps in different areas of your curriculum, it would be a great way to build that in, is to putting the students through vetting a website that you've even pulled up, perhaps in science or math or any other area, and start those conversations of teaching the students how to reflect on that. We encourage students to use journaling or portfolioing of their inquiries and having them reflect on this process. So I might give my students a research time and have them come back in and ask them to maybe evaluate one of the websites they used on this particular criteria, and maybe even consolidating, creating success criteria together with what that might look like. So I just want to come back out to here for a second and show you what this, back to this site. So as I showed you in the beginning, these were the websites that we highlighted with you today. All have a lot more information that I've shared with you today, but great starting points to support those areas of inquiry and building those little mini lessons in for your students, giving them strong research and digital research skills. And I'd like to share with you a video. This video is taking a look at mobile technology being used to support inquiry. And as you watch it, I'd like you to keep an open mind that it might not look exactly like this experience for you and your students, but just starting to think about where we're moving towards and how we can access technology to support inquiry. So this is definitely an advanced usage, but it's definitely really interesting to see where we potentially could go. I probably would be starting some of these experiences really small and really modeled and slowly released, perhaps in my classroom, and moving towards larger experiences. So I'll just let you enjoy this video and then I'll join you back.
St. Lawrence Ecosystems is an introductory course in environmental biology at McGill, and the learning outcomes for the course involve experiential learning, doing research in a field environment. Each project can have its own flavor because the students have different interests, whether it be insects or trees or anything in between. We're going to split into individual groups, and Crystal and I need to spend time with each group before you head off in the woods. We specifically designed things where we didn't need the mobile technology. That's an important point. We didn't say we have to have the mobile technology for this to work. What we did was we said, okay, if we had mobile technology, what's the value added component? As an example, the one group worked with American crows, and they were really keen to understand the different types of sounds that crows make.
That's
Fighting, yeah. Suddenly that became a reasonable question because they could have, with their technology, examples right there with them in the field, so that could be leveraged as a way to change the style of the research question and make it a better question and a more interesting one.
The element of time is really critical because we only have a certain number of hours and only a couple of sessions out in the field. And rather than recording things in their notebooks and taking pictures with a separate device, they were able to, for each data point, basically, they could take a photograph of the subject, they could record a GPS location, which then was immediately put onto a map. There's your map. So that would be like your transect one.
So transect one is here.
Yeah, and like.
Oh, and then you can put transect one start,
transect one end.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good. That's good.
And they were able to, make additional notes all on the same device in a very short period of time.
We're actually using our tablets to take pictures of the canopy cover. So we're standing over a hemlock sapling and using the camera to look up, which will give us an idea of how much light is penetrating.
One of the big advantages is that we can put it on like a note-taking program, and right there we can note like on the file that this is sapling number 1, and we can transfer that to our data sheets.
The picture is up here, so now I can make corresponding notes.
Whereas if I was just using a regular camera, all the pictures would be just on my camera without a label to them, so it'd be much harder to determine like which picture went with which set of data.
And everything is here, so when I go back, it's all here. I can transfer it right to my computer, and it's very useful for that.
In some cases, they blew my mind in how to identify their particular study species. I think the hemlock group had this wonderful YouTube video that explained all the differences between all these different trees. They put that online. We did not tell them to do a YouTube video.
This is Pseudo canadensis, commonly known as the eastern hemlock. Eastern hemlock is a coniferous tree found at the Morgan Arboretum.
Okay, well, I will be seeing you in probably within 5 minutes, so I'll troubleshoot on. I think another surprise I had with the mobile technology is I felt that it would be a great advantage that the students could connect directly with the instructors in the field, and we could find them in the field. Last year, I had to just run around the forest, all these different groups, find them where I didn't know where they were, and then deal with all the problems on them. But this just is totally different. I mean, just in the last 60 feet of walking, I touched base with 3 different groups.
Everything going okay then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
We don't have any troubles.
Okay, that's good. The only real beef I had with the mobile technology was it was difficult sometimes to have video conferences effectively in the field. We were always able to communicate at the very least by text, but there were sometimes, I don't know if it was a connectivity issue or it would have been nicer to be able to link in multiple groups.
If they run into a problem and they needed to go to an external source, I remember the group that was dealing with shelf fungus once had to, were looking at a particular species, and they could just do it right there on the tablet. Pull up a picture of it, compare it to what they were finding. And that's very powerful. And I think that really does enhance the learning.
I think just having the technology with them and having the option to do things like take photographs and make recordings of sounds and make recordings of video, that changed the way that they thought about how they could execute the projects.
The learning outcomes in the course related to scientific communication, the mobile technology was integral to that. We wouldn't have been able to have that level of science communication occurring without that ability to interact with the technology in the field.
So I think what you saw there was technology being leveraged, and we may not be advanced as this level and where we're at, but the idea of what you saw there was collaboration, and you saw students documenting their own learning and creating that journey. So I just want to highlight for you, if you were to come into YouTube here, where our previous channel is, our channel is DPCDSB Chats. So what you'll notice as you come in here is we've created a variety of tutorials. And what you'll find in here is there are some tutorials for apps like here, Explain Everything, and also looking at elements of that flipped classroom and using OneNote or EduCreations. There's so many tools that you can use to have students document their journey. So if you're looking for some tips on how to get started there, you can watch some of these previous videos. The idea is that students are documenting it. They're creating it like a timeline, and they're telling you from their journey from point A to point B when they get to that product. So a great way to have them documenting student learning there and building in that metacognition piece where they can reflect on their steps and their thinking and plan next steps and highlight those different areas and strategies and tools that they use for inquiry. What websites did they use? How did they vet it? And starting to tell a story. So we showed you a variety of resources today. You will need to kind of go and start exploring with those, but hopefully we were able to open your eyes to a few opportunities that you might be able to embrace and use with your students. Again, we're here every Tuesday, so if you'd like to come and try after you've tried things and ask some questions. As we go through the month, we will be adding a new tool each Tuesday as well. That can support the inquiry process. So please take a few minutes today to do the exit ticket that you'll find at the very bottom where you got the link from today's session. And we love some feedback to help us guide the future sessions. Thanks very much and have a great day.